You should go Spooksville. I'm not sure how many people remember. I'd love if you watched it. So weird is that the reenactment is also the experience.
Okay, so I've been away for a little bit and I'm still a little bit rusty. Like, literally. Listen to this. My doctor said he doesn't know what that is, and quite frankly, I should be concerned about my life. But all this to say, for the next 2 months or so, I'll be ranking exclusively shorter series rather than longer series. Think Spooksville or Bone Chillers or finally finishing Are You Afraid of the Dark with the revival seasons. At the same time, I hear you guys in regards to the longer series. I just need to build myself back up to that point again. You know, get some smaller rankings underneath my belt, pad out my portfolio just a little bit more. Then I can rank things like Creepshow or Courage the Cowardly Dog or Inside Number 9. And by all means, keep suggesting down below in the comments. I keep a running total of every series that has been suggested along with a running tally of how many times it has been suggested. It's actually a really helpful device on letting me know what I should rank next. It's how I know that Inside Number 9 is one of the most requested rankings, but in a close second, to my surprise, is Courage.
Stupid dog! You made me look bad!
But enough about all that, because today, we're talking about Dead Time Stories. The quick facts are this. Dead Time Stories was a series of books in the late 90s that were Goosebump knockoff books. Yeah, there's no real nicer way to put this. That's kind of what they were. I mean, look at these book covers compared to Goosebump book covers. And this one's just straight up Chucky, by the way. And it's hard to find this information online, but it doesn't seem like the series sold very well either. I mean, they threw in the towel after 17 books. Just saying. But flash forward to 2012, where a Dead Time Stories pilot aired on Nickelodeon, starring Jennifer Stone, who's better known as Harper from Wizards of Waverly Place, or Harriet from Harriet the Spy, Blog Wars. I know at least one of you sick freaks absolutely love that movie, too. She essentially acts as the narrator for every episode, playing a babysitter reading a different story to different kids every night. It's a cute framework, but maybe it's a little intrusive at times, as it does have the potential to break the momentum on occasion. I think you'll see what I mean later on. But this pilot did pretty well, so Nickelodeon picked up a full season consisting of 10 more episodes. Well, technically 9. Yeah, okay, so from October 2013 to November 2013, episodes 2 through 10 would air on Nickelodeon, and then the 11th and final episode would air a full year later in 2014, exclusively on Vimeo, of all places. And then a couple days later, it would air on TV. The strangest part about all this is that I can't find any information online about why this happened the way it happened, for whatever reason. Stranger yet, if you buy this series on YouTube, like I did, I mean, it was only $4, you get episodes 1 through 10, but they omit the 11th episode for some reason? Meaning I had to watch the final episode on, Daily Motion, in less than stellar quality, might I add. And I didn't exactly have the patience to track down a torrent for this particular episode because, well, okay, I don't have the heart to say this. But he does.
This show sucks.
Yeah. Ironically, in my last ranking video, I talked about how pretty much every episode was a banger. Well, it's the opposite here. This show is pretty bad, whether it be the acting, the special effects, the plot, or just anything. I will say, however, it's a fun bad that does have its moments from time to time. You know, in a weird way, I would still recommend it. I mean, it's only 11 episodes, so why not? But this intro has gone on long enough, and it's finally time to jump into things proper. So please, sit back and relax as I rank every episode of Dead Time Stories from worst to best. Enjoy. This, without a doubt, in my mind, is the absolute worst episode I have ever put in the bottom ranking spot in any of my videos. It's baffling. And I know there's plenty of ranking videos to come after this one, but still, it's gonna be a pretty hard one to beat. or I guess to not beat. The only way that this episode could actually work is if you have arachnophobia, because outside of that, there's absolutely nothing here. And I mean that quite literally. For a grand majority of this episode's runtime, absolutely nothing happens. And it's not done in a way to raise suspense, or set an eerie tone, or to do anything worth a damn. Instead, we just got a kid throwing back those Keebler fudge stripe cookies while dissecting a frog. Which, by the way, best cookies, bar none.
Oreo Starbender. Fuck you.
I mean, those are some fighting words, but I'll let you guys sell it in the comments. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and you guys will see soon enough for yourself. But Dead Time Stories as a whole usually follows a really simple premise with not really a whole lot going on inside that actual episode. And this episode is the antithesis of this structure, as the story revolves around these two boys playing with a dissection kit. At first, they cut open a frog and get rid of its guts in the kitchen sink, and then they try to cut into a tarantula, but it comes alive. Ooh, the horror. And this is it. This is a majority of the episode. Just these two boys dealing with a tarantula. A slow-moving, non-harmful, regular old tarantula. At one point in the episode, they say it's venomous and deadly, and I mean, I don't know. Through some quick research, I found out that most tarantulas are venomous, but not in a way that could kill you. More so, it would just irritate your skin and whatnot. Which is fine, I guess. I can suspend my disbelief and buy into the fact that this spider can possibly kill these kids. At the same time, it's so slow it almost doesn't matter. Better yet, at one point they managed to flush the spider down the toilet, but to their surprise, the spider randomly reappears. And when trying to tell an adult in the household, they don't see it and therefore don't believe the kids. Just one of the biggest cliches in children's horror media, which I can excuse for older series like Goosebumps, Bone Chillers, and Are You Afraid of the Dark? Or if the cliche is subverted in some way, shape, or form, but in this scenario, it's just the same old, same old. It's only in the final minutes where things actually start to escalate in an interesting way, when the boys find the family's dog strung up in a web cocoon, and giving credit where it's due, this is a pretty terrifying visual, and a simple but effective, effect. The only problem is that these two aren't scared in the slightest, and treat the whole situation as more of an annoyance than anything else. And not to harp on it too much, because these are kids after all, but these two can't act for shit. So I don't really think it's a problem with the direction, but more so just a problem with the acting. But shortly after they free the dog, the tarantula reappears, but this time it's huge, and hell yeah, this is awesome. Finally, something is happening. I said finally, something is happening. Why the fuck are they just standing there doing nothing? Yeah, the climactic final battle ain't much. Just a bunch of standing around, doing nothing, and then dropping a garage door on the spider, which also does nothing. And then, and make sure you're paying attention to this, they take a leaf blower and fill the spider up with air, and then the spider flies away like a deflating balloon. Oh my god. I need a drink. I'm cool with a goofy ending, but the episode itself has to be goofy. The tone has to be consistent. But it's not like the episode's twist ending is any better. Because, yeah, they defeated the spider, but now, the frog they disposed of in the sink is back and alive. Like, okay. Once again, unfortunately, as you will see, Dead Time Stories twist endings kinda suck. Hard. This one is just a straight up mess from start to finish. To give a little bit of credit, unlike the last episode, there's actual things happening in this episode, but maybe that's not a good thing. Listen, when an episode begins with our main characters seeing a monster and just not caring about it and going on about their day, you know you're in for an interesting time, to say the least. In fact, I think this whole episode is just revealing new characters or new revelations and just not properly giving anyone the proper weight or attention they deserve. And the end result is everything just feeling really scattered. I mean, let me paint an analogy real quick. This episode's a lot like Neapolitan ice cream. Sure, it's got a bunch of different flavors, but none of them are the best in their respective field. Also, the ice cream expired in 2007. So this episode focuses on these two kids as they visit their big extensive family, and point blank, this episode may introduce a lot of characters, but really, outside of our main characters and Grandpa, no one really matters. Some are just purely set dressing, while others set up short-lived mystery components for the episode. Which is fine, but I feel like too much time is dictated to these side excursions that it ultimately detracts from the overall episode. Like this dinner scene in particular, it goes on for way too long, and really, it's just one big joke about how disgusting the food is. Now you may be asking yourself, Colin, you were talking about a monster at the beginning of this episode. It's like a mix of the honeycomb monster and critter from Critters. Yet, you haven't talked about the monster since. Why is that? Yeah, kinda weird, right? Well, that's what happens in this episode. The kids see a monster, brush it off, vaguely bring it up here and there, and then overhear a conversation which encourages the kids to dig further and find these old film reels. Basically, as the title of the episode implies, these kids find a home movie of the grandpa when he was a kid winning some kind of carnival prize that ends up being a monster. And now in the present, the grandpa reveals his monster to the kids, saying how this monster, which is named Gus Gus, actually is pretty harmless. It's on a strict vegetarian diet, because if it ever consumes any meat, it kinda goes crazy. So of course these other kids, who weren't told any of this information, wander on up moments later and feed Gus Gus some chicken, prompting him to go absolutely berserk. But this threat is quickly dealt with as they feed it a firecracker and it fucking explodes. Did they get a middle schooler to do the special effects? But, in the twist ending, turns out that Gus Gus is now just a bunch of tiny little Gus Gus's. Which, believe it or not, is one of the very few twist endings that actually works within the series. But overall, it's just an episode that poorly introduces a monster, hardly sets it up efficiently, struggles to make us care about any of these characters, and then clumsily concludes everything in a way that just feels completely empty. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but this is yet again another episode where, after the initial premise is set up, absolutely nothing happens until the very end. Perhaps even more so than the previous entries. I mean, I'm not even kidding. You take the most boring sport in the world, that being golf. Hey, this is future editing Colin here, and I don't know why I said golf. I mean, the episode takes place on a golf course, and we see people play golf, but the central game in this episode revolves around croquet, which is equally as boring as golf, so maybe that's why I was confused by the two. Anyways, I just wanted to clarify this before a bunch of comments point this out. And to atone for my mistake, take my firstborn son. Fuck it, I don't care. Back to the video. And somehow make it even more boring. Legitimately, the first 5 minutes of this episode, nothing happens. I mean, they set up these characters in the central location being a golf course with an old castle nearby, but as far as character introductions go, they're pretty standard, and the characters themselves are very unremarkable. Like, we really didn't need this much time dedicated to these kids dicking around the golf course or this beer league golf team storyline. Even if it is the central reason for kicking off the plot, why do we spend so much time on it? Just shorten it a little bit. If I wanted to watch two old guys bicker about golf, I would watch golf. But basically, this princess ghost from long ago helps the boys win a golf game, which was a very low stakes golf game to begin with. But in return, since she helped these boys, they must help her by killing this ghost knight, who is not only significantly bigger than these mere kids, but also well trained in combat. Yeah, I'm beginning to think this isn't a fair trade-off. I mean, all you did was this.
Yes, that's my boy!
And in return, we gotta fight this. Like, hey man, I made a cup of coffee for you. Anyways, can you slay Zogarth, the all-seeing undying demon, for me? I figured I scratched your back so you could scratch my back. Right? This may have felt like a quick summary, but this is literally all that happens in the first 15 minutes of this episode before the final battle with the Ghost Knight. Oh, and some minor tapestry stuff alluding to the future, which is kind of a minor point throughout the episode. And normally I would just write off this entire episode regardless of the finale. However, they kind of want to be over in the end. Now, don't get it twisted, it's not an amazing final battle or anything like that, but god damn is it fun. And like, just stupid, goofy fun. The final battle starts with a jousting match, with the Ghost Knight in proper attire with a proper weapon and a proper trusty steed. Meanwhile, the boys are rocking some polos, whipping a golf cart, and charging the battle with golf clubs. This is just a silly and goofy setup. I love it so much. And of course, the boys lose. They're not working with much. I mean, the Ghost Knight's got crazy reach, like Third Strike Chun-Li, and the boys are working with nothing in comparison. So they get the bright idea to exit the vehicle and face the Ghost Knight head on by pelting him with golf balls.
Nice shot!
It's one of those things where I don't know if I love it because it's so stupid and fun, or I love it because the entire episode beforehand has been so boring and filled with nothing. Like, yeah, Subway sandwiches are gross, but if you haven't eaten all day, that's the best Italian sub you've ever eaten in your life all of a sudden. But the boys were able to defeat the knight and save the princess, but the Ghost Knight spirit just ends up possessing this older golf guy. And like, sure, it's a twist ending that actually does work. And it is somewhat alluded to throughout the episode, because outside of the two main characters, the only other person that can see this ghost princess is this old timer right here. But it's one that falls a little flat, mainly because the reveal is just so fast and just doesn't land for some reason. Oh, and to end off this episode, I just gotta say, this is probably some of the cheapest set design I've seen in a while. I mean, look at this interior of the castle. It looks like straight cardboard. It looks like a High School's Musical production set design. A drastically underfunded High School's Musical production set design. But hey, I guess you could argue that it adds to the charm. This is the infamous 11th episode, the limited time Vimeo exclusive and unpurchasable final episode to the Dead Time Stories series. It's also why the quality doesn't look as great as the other episodes. And, I mean, technically there's like fan-made Blu-ray bootlegs that you can buy that include the 11th episode, but if you buy this digitally anywhere else, you ain't getting this episode. So, does it live up to the hype? I mean, do you see where it ranked? Straight into the point, it's a clown episode, so this may rank higher for those who have a fear of clowns, unlike me. But even then, unless you have an extreme phobia, I'm willing to bet this episode still won't do anything for you because, and I hate to say it again, nothing happens. Let me set it up real quick. Basically, these two girls are babysitting this one kid who apparently lives in this house that a serial killer clown named Giggles lived in previously. The two girls don't give a shit outside of being a little scared at the start. Meanwhile, one of their friends show up to the house and talks about wanting to search the place, because apparently even after Giggles was arrested, his clown getup was never found. So this guy proposes the idea of searching the entire house to try and find said clown getup because Giggles has a lot of fanatics who would pay big money for such a find. But the girls just kick him out. Yeah, they don't want to deal with any of that shit. They just want to eat pizza and watch Dead Time stories.
I can't believe you're making me watch a Dead Time story in this house. It's not like that.
What the fuck? Yeah, it's just a cute little meta reference, but nothing beyond that. This being the final episode of the series, I thought this episode was about to get all meta, like Scream, or the final episode of Eerie, Indiana, but no. It's just a cute little callback reference, nothing more beyond that. But the guy ends up sneaking back in the house and he finds Giggles' old clown costume and decides to put it on to scare the girls inside. But upon doing this, the spirit of Giggles possesses this guy and nothing happens. I think the big problem in this episode is the fact that once this kid gets possessed, he puts on this trying to be scary attitude. He stares down these girls, he talks in a more lower hissing tone, and he's just trying too hard to be scary. And it doesn't do anything. It just feels like a little kid trying to be scary. So much so that it borders on being a little bit cringy. And I don't say that lightly because I really don't like describing things like that, but in this scenario, it kind of rings true. I mean, I thought the twist at the end was going to be that this kid was just faking the entire time because it was that cringy of an act, but nah, this is what actually being possessed does to him. And on the physical front, he's such a non-threat as well. I mean, it's a 13, maybe 14-year-old boy who moves slowly and doesn't look like he's very strong. Like, he's just not a threat. But that's the whole episode, just these kids interacting with this clown and subsequently running away from said clown. Also, he's got like the biggest weakness. You see, the possession takes place in the clown nose. Once you remove the clown nose, the boy returns to normal. So, just to be 100% clear here, clown nose equals possession. No clown nose equals no possession. This will be relevant in just a second. So not only is that like the easiest thing to undo, but it's made even easier when the clown isn't brandishing any sort of weapons for a majority of the episode. Like, at least have him hold a knife or something. Make it actually risky to try and take the nose off because as it stands right now, it's got me asking if these girls are just completely incompetent. But they do eventually devise a plan to throw him into a pool, and, well, he's all back to normal now. And thus they throw away the costume. But in the end, the kid they are babysitting is possessed by Giggles the clown. But he's not wearing the nose? It was one simple rule. One simple rule. You wear the clown nose, you get possessed. And this episode can't even follow that one rule. I'm recording this at 1 in the morning, and I don't want to get complaints from the neighbors. They never complain so far, but there's always a first for everything. I legit don't know if this was just an oversight or if this was supposed to imply something else. But even then, it doesn't make sense. This kid saw a clown costume in the trash and decided to dig it out. But also, this kid only has one scene in the entire episode. I mean, shit, he doesn't appear in the episode until 17 minutes in, which is about 5 minutes before the end of the episode. Hey, this is future editing Colin coming in once again, and don't worry. This is, thankfully, the last time I will be stopping this video. But I don't know why I said that this kid only appears at the very end of the episode. Because in actuality, he appears at the very end and at the very start. So it's slightly less stupid, but like, it's still really stupid. They barely set this kid up as a character, but I guess having him at the start and at the end makes him some sort of Chekhov's gun, so to say. Which, like, okay, I'm not gonna get into it. I promise I'm not gonna get into it. Anyways, this is the last you'll hear of good old future Colin. Now, this ranking video should be at least 90% mistake-free. You can complain about that, but it's still an A- at the end of the day. We just don't know enough about this kid's personality to know why he wanted to dig out a clown suit from the trash. Does he like clowns? Does he like digging out of the trash? We don't know. I mean, there's only a little amount of time we see this kid, and the only thing we can make out of it is that he's a complete iPad kid, probably playing Minecraft Pocket Edition. But nothing about this ending works. It's a twist for the sake of a twist, but it doesn't even follow their own rules. It's pretty baffling. What's stranger is that this is the note the show not only ended on, but came back to end on. Once again, this episode premiered a whole year after the previous episode, and Jennifer Stone is rocking blonde hair this time around. So it really feels like they did film this a whole year later, as opposed to just sitting on an episode for over a year for some reason. Once again, it's hard to find information on why this episode is the way it is. So if you know anything, I would love to hear it. But as it stands, it's the final breath of this series, for better or for worse. So here's a change of pace. Instead of nothing happening at all, something actually happens. This episode isn't good, but giving credit where it's deserved, once the ball gets rolling, it sure does stay rolling. Now, this episode's structure is all over the place, as it focuses on many different small altercations that don't really play off of one another. Like, this setup could work if each magic altercation slowly accumulates and creates a bigger overarching problem for our main characters, like a snowball effect. But nah, each little magical mishap is seemingly operated completely independently from one another, which could also work if these were fun, or scary, or anything really worth a damn. Like, accidentally vanishing their cat named Tiger, or silencing this girl from talking. I've seen better. This kid's head falling off is pretty great though. But it really is a tale as old as time, at least when it comes to these children horror TV shows. But it's about two kids who want to enter the talent show, so they encounter this zany wizard who gives the boys a real magical kit. It's a very basic kit at that, as it just comes with a wand, a magical ring, an amulet, and like a chopping box thing that all those real magicians use. I don't know the official word for it. I don't think anyone really does. But the magic only works if the person is using either the ring or the amulet. A fact we don't find out until the end. But from here, it's just these two getting themselves into magical hijinks. Like I said before, their cat Tiger disappears, but when waving their magic wand to try and get him back, they accidentally summon a real tiger and have to deal with that. They also silence this girl by permanently muting her, and they never undo this. So even by the end of the episode, we can kind of just assume she's never going to speak again. But all this accumulates in the big school talent show where they accidentally chop off this kid's head. But it's fine because it doesn't actually come off until later on. But the boys are at a loss and don't know what to do. And like an ending to a bad video game creepypasta, they go back to the store where they purchased everything to not only find out that it's not there, but they're also told that it never existed. So the boys rightfully freak out when this janitor character, who vaguely looks like Colin Farrell, sits them down and says, "Y'all are dumb." Yeah, so throughout the entire episode, this janitor character has been on their ass because, well, they're troublemakers, but also he too is a magic user, as he has both the ring and the amulet. He tells the boys that the only way to undo all their magical stuff is to wear both the ring and the amulet, as that gives you total control over magic. He fixes the boy's head for free, but then he just yoinks the other kid's finger and ring straight off. He basically does this to ensure the boys actually retrieve the amulet and also make sure they never mess with this stuff again. However, unfortunately, when they go home, they find out that their amulet is missing, and so is their grandma. Turns out that the grandma accidentally used the amulet to appear on this one game show that was referenced throughout the entire episode, and okay? I mean, this is supposed to be like the big scary twist ending, and like, am I dumb or something? Don't answer that.
Yes, you are.
But like, sure, the grandma doesn't know what's going on, but she can wish herself back. The boys could also just go back to the janitor and explain the situation. I know the janitor is strict and told the boys not to return unless they have the amulet and blah blah blah, but he's also pure of heart and goes out of his way to protect and stand up for members of his community. I think telling him that an innocent bystander that's elderly nonetheless got wrapped up in this whole magic debacle would have him stepping in to save the day. But this is what I mean about Dead Time Stories twist endings. They basically come in 3 different flavors. You got the ones that don't work on any level. Think about the clown ending. That kid wasn't wearing the nose, so why is he possessed? Then you got the endings like in this episode where it's hard to find what's scary about it. Then finally you get the actual competent twist endings that may not be amazing, but they get the job done on some level. And I just have a hard time seeing what's so scary about this ending. Now, if Granny accidentally ended up in a wildlife documentary surrounded by lions, then yeah, that would be better. It's kind of becoming a trend in these ranking videos that the very first episode ends up ranking in the upper middle ranks, which I mean, does make sense. A lot of first episodes are overall very solid, yet at the same time don't possess the finesse that other episodes would develop. Except this time around, despite just ranking outside the top 5, this episode, Grave Secrets, it's a little rough to say the least. In large part, due to the acting. Listen, I don't like dogging on child actors because, well, they're children. I mean, what were you doing at 13 years old anyways? I know for a fact 13-year-old Colin only gave a shit about Black Ops 2 Zombies, Hot Pockets, and X-Files, which, hey, wait a minute. 24-year-old Colin still really cares about all that stuff. Oh god. But I can't lie, the acting here is really bad. This could be said for almost every other episode as well, but it's on full display here. Gotta give credit though, it's really nice to see actual middle schoolers play middle schoolers. I'm so used to high schoolers being played by people in their 20s, and middle schoolers being played by like 16, 17, 18-year-olds. If anything, some of these performances remind me of when I was in middle school and made home movies with my friends. That may seem like an insult, but I mean that in the most sincere way possible. It's really charming in the end of the day, but outside of that, this episode is pretty standard, but it is executed rather well. You got a central antagonist, some paranormal ghost shit, a nice revelation, and an emotional ending. But you got a twist ending that sucks, but more on that in a second. It really is just the acting that hinders the episode. And a really messy opening. Like, it starts with these kids losing a ball in this old lady's backyard. The kids call her Barnsey and label her a witch. Well, when going over to retrieve said ball, our main character gets stopped by Barnsey, but she manages to run away. But that's when she notices that she lost her bracelet, and then her friends are like, you probably lost it in this backyard and not Barnsey's? So they just start digging, and then they find this old doll that talks but doesn't have a talk box. Like, they explicitly point out the fact that it's talking, yet it doesn't have a talk box, like, right away, and the kids just brush it off like it's nothing. Nobody cares. Fucking react to that. I mean, come on, that shit's scary. To a kid. It's scary to a kid. I mean, I'm not scared, you know? Are you guys buying that? It's such a convoluted opening, but luckily the episode starts hitting its stride and it's all uphill from there. That being said, it is rather tropic with the paranormal stuff that happens. Like paranormal things happening, but the main character can't prove it to anyone else. Real rinse and repeat formula. But we do actually get this fantastically disturbing visual of our main character being buried alive. Like, it's a dream sequence, but it's still really brutal. The only downside is that the ghost girl that is haunting our main character keeps saying that she wants her baby back.
I want my baby back.
I want my baby back.
Need to give her baby back.
Who wants their baby back?
I know you want your baby back. Get my baby back. I want my baby back. Get her baby back. And my baby back.
And I'm sorry, but it just reminds me of this.
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, chili, baby back, red.
But all that aside, the backstory to everything is revealed. Turns out that Barnsey, as a kid, stole this girl's doll, which accidentally led to her death as she tries to get the doll back and gets hit by a car. The ghost girl just wants her baby back, or her doll back, but she also wants closure. So the kids figure it would be best if Barnsey gives the doll back, and yeah, this is a really nice emotional scene. And overnight, Barnsey completely changes. How guilt-free she throws a Halloween party for all the neighborhood kids. And at that party, despite finally moving on, is the ghost girl. Okay, two things. One, why? And two, how is that scary? First, the why. It just doesn't make sense. This girl is finally able to move on, and what? She comes back because she wants to bob for apples? But also, how is this scary? The whole point of this character is that it's a red herring. In the beginning, the ghost girl seems all evil and scary, but in the end, she's completely harmless and doesn't plan on doing anything to anyone. She's actually pretty chill and really just wants her doll back. So her coming back and having all these kids scream in terror is like, why? Listen, if my friends pass away and they turn up as a ghost at a house party to get lit, then I'm hyped as hell. It just doesn't make sense, but I guess this was a sign of what's to come concerning Dead Time Stories endings. This one's a little coincidental because there just so happens to be a Creeped Out episode with a very similar premise concerning a blue man and frozen time. Except this time around, this episode deals with goblins and frozen time. As far as which one is scarier, it's honestly a coin toss. Let's say Heads is Revenge of the Goblins and Tails is The Traveler. TV? Yeah, so I guess that episode is better. But these two kids stumble across an orb and a goblin statue when working on a science project together. Sometime later, through sheer circumstance and saying the word stop, they find out that the orb can stop time, but unbeknownst to them, a goblin is hot on their trails. Except this goblin is frozen in regular time, essentially becoming a statue, and can only move during frozen time. So yeah, Creeped Out fans, I hope you guys are really seeing the similarities. Although, I do gotta point out that this episode did come first before Creeped Outs by like a whole 4 years, so maybe Creeped Out's on Fraud Watch. However, unfortunately, I think Creeped Out had a more fun time showcasing frozen time hijinks. In the case of Dead Time Stories, they don't really do much. I mean, the dude steals a bite of food and writes something on the whiteboard and puts the marker in his bully's hands, thus getting him in trouble with the teacher, and that's kind of it. Like, this episode focuses more on the goblins, which I get, I do like them, and the makeup is pretty good, but we're dealing with frozen time here. Have some fun with it. But as the days go on and the main characters bicker about the orb, the goblins become more and more prevalent, with now a handful popping up around town, which people just write off as some sort of practical joke. One of the confusing aspects to the entire episode is that when any character sees a frozen goblin, their initial instinct is to just say that it's a statue and like, yeah, sure. I don't think any sane person's first leap in logic would conclude that it's a goblin frozen in time. But on the other hand, nothing about these designs screams statue to me. This might be a minor point to harp on, but I think it's relevant to the overall story because this perceived threat of seemingly a goblin attack is kinda underplayed. Like, nobody sees this as a problem. Hell, even the main characters brush this off rather fast. If you want some rising tension, why not just have your central conflict reflect that? But it almost doesn't matter, because in the end, there ends up being two goblins fighting over the orb. And cutting straight to the point, these two are brothers. One's good and one's bad. The bad one wants the orb to basically rule the world, and the good one wants the orb to not have his brother rule the world. Yeah, he really doesn't have any other motive beyond just stopping his brother. But of course, the bad goblin ends up getting the orb and all seems lost. So after sipping some Capri Suns on the French porch steps, they ask themselves, but why don't we just go get the orb back? And with very little struggle, they manage to get the orb back and the day is saved. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, the bad goblin ends up getting the orb when the time is frozen, meaning they really need that orb back to unfreeze time. I didn't mention it because outside of being a looming threat, it's never really relevant to the actual climactic battle. Yeah, it's there to kind of raise the stakes, but like, y'all are stuck in frozen time, but we're just gonna fight all the way out here in the middle of nowhere, where it doesn't even seem like time is frozen. Like, okay, sure, whatever. But the twist this time around is that now the bully from earlier has got a hold of the orb and can stop time freely, which is an actual scary situation to be in. If the worst person you knew in real life had a power to stop time, how fucked do you think your life would be? But yeah, it's a frozen time story that focuses more on some half-baked goblin melodrama rather than the really cool aspect of stopping time. You know what I mean? It just seems a little mismanaged to me. Terror in Tiny Town is a horrible episode that you can't help but to love. I mean, for the completely wrong reasons, but still. It wears its heart on its sleeve, and despite everything, it's just so charming. I mean, look at these special effects.
What are you looking at, you two giant jerks?
I unironically love this type of shit. It's like watching an old Danebo video from 2010 or 2011. And I mean that in the best, most sincere possible way ever. But before any of the fun happens, it's a bit of a slow climb to the top. I won't bore you guys with the details, it's pretty standard story stuff given the genre at this point. Basically, these kids' model town comes alive through lightning, and at the start, the kids suspect something is up, but can't prove it. Then the residents of Tiny Town start wreaking havoc, and the boys start getting blamed for things they didn't do. Even going out of their way to capture evidence greatly backfires in the end. I mean, it's not a complete loss. They do manage to capture footage of Tiny Town residents moving and talking about their upcoming plans, which to me is really funny. Like, all the townspeople are little figures, but when the chips are down and it's time for these people to start moving, they're just people. Regular old people. Poorly green screened in and everything. But of course, before they're able to show this footage to the parents, it gets destroyed. But the next day, the boys are left alone in the house, and this is where the residents decide to launch a full-on attack, and oh yeah. Now this is what I'm talking about. A true feast of the senses. So yeah, it's funny bad, but it's also just funny, as there's a couple of jokes in there that just land for me.
I'm going in.
Like, how can you not smile at that? But the tides of this war slowly shift in the boys' favor. Well, I guess the war's always been in the boys' favor because, let's be real, these guys weren't doing jack shit. But anyways, the boys find out that water turns the residents back into figures for some reason. It has to do with the fact that lightning gave them life, so I guess water takes it away? I'm not even going to pretend I understand. But now the boys can finally fight back.
It's time for Operation Mega Squirt! Yeah!
Excuse me, what? But the boys end up saving the day and everything goes back to normal. And in the last scene, we see the boys boarding a train, which turns out to be in Tiny Town. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, and it isn't alluded to in the slightest. Once again, it's just one of the many Dead Time Story twist endings that literally don't make any sense. But overall, outside of the first half, which is a little bit of a slog, the second half is non-stop fun. For the wrong reasons, but also the right reasons. We can point and laugh at how horrible the green screen effects are, but in the end of the day, it's still a really fun sequence. I mean, this episode's got my full recommendation. Just kind of skip through the first half. Hey, look at this, top 3, and we finally get an average episode. It's not good, but it's not bad. Kind of crazy that it took this long to break even, but here we are. And this episode is a little deceptive. You see, it presents itself as an episode about Bloody Mary, but it's actually more of a classic Monkey's Paw, be careful what you wish for story. Which Bloody Mary still plays a role throughout the episode, they just change it in a way that now she grants wishes. Which, I mean, I guess she's always done throughout some renditions of the story. All I'm saying is that when I think about Bloody Mary, I don't really think about granting wishes. but maybe I'm just fucking stupid. But this all starts one day when this girl's parents look at their daughter's disgusting lime green room and wonder how they could possibly make it any uglier. And then it hits them. This giant wooden mirror with a little Gollum character carved into the front. Yep, that'll definitely do it. I mean, Jesus, dude. It's actually a cool mirror, but it doesn't match the room in the slightest. I will say though, I really do love how ugly that room is. I mean, this show being a 2013 show that happens to coincide with the time I was in middle school too, and if there's one thing all middle schoolers share in common from that time period, it's these ugly ass bedrooms. Truly, we all had some horrid taste back then. And if it wasn't your bedroom, it was probably your sense of fashion. Abercrombie shirt and plaid cargo shorts, I see you. I mean, all this room is really missing is some One Direction posters, and it would practically be identical to any middle school girl's room during that time period. But I've spent too long talking about this bullshit. Back to the actual episode. Basically, all these kids quickly grow enamored with the mirror and decide to play Bloody Mary because I guess there's nothing better to do. And basically, this is how it works. Once the correct words are chanted, Bloody Mary will reveal themselves in the mirror to only one person. And that one person that sees her gets to say a wish. Like this girl wishes for a puppy, and the next day, she gets one. Pretty standard, right? The escalation is 2, and initially, nobody believes that this thing is really working, until this guy catches a glimpse of Bloody Mary and wishes that he didn't have to take a history test tomorrow, which is like, such a realistic panic wish at that age. But the wish does come true, but at a cost, as the history teacher just fucking passes out. She's fine, but she leaves for the day. Later on, it's revealed that the reason why this little girl got a puppy in the first place was because the original owner ended up in the hospital and couldn't take care of it anymore. So yeah, straight up monkey's paw situation. Okay, cool. So no more Bloody Mary rituals and no more wishing, right? Seems pretty simple, and it is. But Bloody Mary plays dirty because despite not doing the ritual, the main character talks to her friend and says that she wishes she was head of the cheer team, and so the current head of the cheer team ends up in the hospital. Kinda not fair, but this is the final straw that makes the girl just destroy the mirror outright. And there's this funny insert shot where she locks the door behind her, but like, it's clearly a door that doesn't have a lock. So she just twists the handle and there's a little sound effect that plays, but like, there's no lock. I just thought it was really funny and speaks volumes to the overall quality of this show. But the mirror fights back and sucks her in, which looks pretty goofy. But her friends happen to stop by, reveal a fucking robot of all things inside the mirror, and then they solve a 3rd grade level puzzle and free the girl, thus breaking the mirror. But they also accidentally release Bloody Mary. Ooh. Yeah, it's a fine twist ending. Actually makes sense and is built up, but like, without the mirror, does she have any powers? Like, outside of the mirror, that's just a manager at Joann Fabrics, right? But overall, it's just a very solid episode. It doesn't really stand out, whether that be negative or positive. Normally, an episode like this in any other ranking would be more in the middle of the pack, but I guess for Dead Time Stories, this is one of the better ones. Hey, an actually good episode for once. Crazy that it took this long. And I'm assuming some of you guys are already familiar with this episode, considering that King Nusumi covered this a while back on his own channel. I would say go sub to his channel, but if you're watching this video, odds are you probably already are and have been for a while now. So, I guess subscribe to me? I think? But this episode isn't without its weirdness. I mean, the whole intro to this episode is messy as hell, as we get introduced to our main character, but we also get introduced to JJ and his mother. And like, what the fuck?
Well, well, well. Looks like the little genius thinks he can put one over on me, does he?
Yeah, so the mom's insane and the kid likes to spit everywhere. This is going to be a constant throughout the entire episode whenever JJ's on screen, by the way.
You guys are gonna be sorry for this! Dead sorry! Coming to my party.
What's he
Something about spitting just grosses me out to no end, which is bad because I think this is played comedically for some reason. but it's one hell of a jarring introduction to these characters and this initial setup. Not gonna go into too much detail, but the basic gist is that JJ wants to have a birthday party and his mother really doesn't want him to celebrate his birthday for some reason. But here's the thing. JJ is a complete dickhead. Like, not only is he an asshole, but even in his more sincere moments, he's just like super aggressive for some reason. I mean, let me put it like this. We got a mom who doesn't want their son to celebrate his birthday. By all means, we should sympathize with the son here. However, JJ is such an aggressive asshole, I'm kinda team mom on this one. And that's how I felt even before the big twist. But no one really cares about JJ because everyone in the neighborhood is more keen on playing hide and seek for some reason. Meanwhile, multiple different characters talk about the Beast of Baskerville. Just a harmless wives' tale, but then slowly, one by one, people from the group go missing. It's pretty standard stuff, but it's done well and rather quickly. I'm a big fan of the pacing throughout this episode, so eventually only the main character remains, well, because he's the main character and this has to be dramatic. But the Beast finally decides to show himself and it's JJ. Yeah, turns out JJ has been cursed to change into the Beast every day when the time strikes the same time of his birth. So basically, he was born at 10:47 p.m, so every day at that time, he'll turn the Beast and stay that way until sunrise. And it's these Beast interactions that really sell the entire episode for me because it's just really funny.
Let me ask you this one question.
What?
What's with all the elephants?
Oh, nothing. I just really like elephants.
I don't know, it's just a really funny juxtaposition, just really banal, flavorless, boring, standard everyday chit-chat coming out of this giant beast. It's funny. It's 1 in the morning when I'm recording this, by the way, and I'm a little sick, so almost done though. But we find out why JJ has been so keen on celebrating his birthday. Turns out, celebrating his birthday is the only way to undo the curse. You see, to break the curse, JJ must gather 13 people. Those 13 people must witness JJ blow out his candles. But not until one of those 13 people sings happy birthday to JJ in Romanian. Oh, and JJ only has an opportunity to do this every 13 years. So yeah, I think if you just led with that instead of being an aggressive jerk, these kids would have happily attended his party instead of, well, having to be kidnapped. But the kids are successful, even after the mom tries to thwart his attempt, and then she just turns into stone in the worst looking effect I've ever seen in my life. But all is good, until it turns out, JJ kinda tricked everyone yet again. You see, the curse can't be broken, it can only be transferred. So now all 13 of these kids will turn to beasts at the time of their birth, which is a great ending. But there is a simple solution here that the kids just aren't seeing. You want to take it away, TV?
Just like you did.
Listen, if they all turn to the Beast, they could tear this kid apart limb from limb. It won't undo the curse, but at least they'll feel better about it. Oh, and for one good measure, JJ makes sure to spit one more time before departing. Pure class on that kid right there. I think what we get on our hands is A Tale of Two Cities. In the first half, we got a fairly decent murder mystery type scenario. It's not amazing by any means, but it's serviceable. And then in the second half, we just got some really funny banter between these kids and the Beast. So in the end, you kind of get a good mix of suspense, scares, mystery, and humor. It's the best episode of the entire series, and let's be honest, given the overall quality of this series, it wasn't really even a competition. I'm honestly just surprised that this series, despite all its flaws, was able to turn out one truly superb and special episode. Because that's what Invasion of the Appleheads turned out to be in the end of the day. Just wanting to clarify that, I didn't want to make it seem like this episode was the least rotten apple of the bunch. Instead, it truly is like a Cosmic Crisp or a Fuji apple. Not quite a pink lady though. But this episode hits the ground running and never lets its foot off the gas. I think the biggest strength that this episode offers is its atmosphere. From start to finish, things just seem uneasy. Everything is slightly off. The tension is high, and I don't think this is the best way to describe it, but there's this strange sense of paranoia that looms through the entire episode, and it just never goes away. The story this time is rather simple, but told on a grand scale, as this family visits a farm in Appleton, which is run by these two witches who end up basically enslaving the entire town through apples, poison apples to be exact, as they turn any adults into these doll-like apple figures called appleheads, while any children that consumes an apple turns into a mindless zombie slave. Of course, our two main characters don't eat said apples. Unfortunately, the parents aren't too lucky and turned appleheads themselves. The rest of the episode just involves these two trying to restore everyone back to normal, warning the correct authorities and avoiding detection from the witches and their goons. The main enforcer being this scarecrow guy. And this episode does a great job of making the sense of powerlessness even stronger, because despite doing the best thing in their situation and informing the police, it's not too long until they too turn into appleheads. It's really in this final act that you feel this overwhelming sense of helplessness. It's awesome. But the two devise a plan to trick these witches into eating their own apples and, well, it doesn't quite work. Luckily, the scarecrow switches sides and decides to help the kids and save the day. All the zombie kids go back to normal, and all the parents return to their normal selves without any recollection of what transpired. And in the end, the parents tell the kids that they're going to visit Appleton Lagoon, which is where the Loch Ness Monster lives, and the kids freak out. Ah, man. And we were so close to a perfect episode, they just had to ruin it with the twist ending that just isn't scary at all. But like, okay, it's not only forced, but also just stupid. Listen, I'm not gonna get into why it's stupid, because I think you can all refer to it on your own accord. But the twist ending aside, it's truly a fantastic episode. It's got anything one would want from a children's horror episode, all blown up to massive proportions. Outside of the twist ending, my only problem with the episode is that it's the fourth in the series, meaning it raised the bar so high so early on that it kind of made all the other episodes worse in comparison. It's like, I've seen you at your best, and you're still just turning in below average work because instead of applying yourself, you just want to sit around and play Halo Reach with your friends. Which, like, if we're being honest, I would too. But that's not a negative on the episode itself, it's more a negative on the series as a whole. And listen, I know I've been ragging on the show and making all sorts of jokes here and there, but the truth is, a lot of hardworking people put this show together for our enjoyment. And while it may have fallen short, it was still an enjoyable watch, warts and all. So despite all of the negativity, I would still unironically implore you guys to check out the series. I mean, it's only 11 episodes, it's a quick watch if anything, but it's easier to get by in life if you find enjoyment in the things that maybe aren't the best. So that was Dead Time Stories. Kind of rough, pretty short, but it's finally over with.
That's what she said. K.O.
Anyways, I'm working on the next ranking video as we speak right now. And no spoilers, but let's just say I'm finally finishing something that some people may have deemed incomplete to begin with. But I'll let you guys speculate on what that could be. That being said, please still recommend what I should rank next, because I really do track every single suggestion, and the more people suggest it, the more it kind of moves up on my priority list on what to rank next. Also, just a personal thank you to all of you guys. You guys showed a lot of love on the Erie, Indiana video. That's my first video back. I wasn't really expecting anything, but you guys came out. You guys left some really nice comments. You guys were asking me about my New Year's, wishing that I was okay, and rest assured, I'm more than fine. In fact, I'm thriving, kind of. But yeah, no, it was really cool to see that, and I really appreciate it. And I think just stepping away for a while makes you appreciate this a lot more. I don't know. I just appreciate you guys. Also, to my surprise, a lot of you guys were commenting about my old videos that I unlisted. Because now I'm really just rebranding to focus on the ranking videos from here on out. And I didn't think anyone cared about my older videos on the channel. But a number of you guys cared and commented. So yeah, I'll make a playlist. I'll make a playlist. I'll restore the original thumbnails to those. I'll make a playlist. It'll be all unlisted, but there'll be a playlist on my channel where you can watch all my older videos again. But I'll get that done, I don't know, sometime next month probably. Got a busy schedule ahead of me. But yeah, I think that was the most surprising thing. Like 3, 4, 5 comments. Not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but like, you know, the people that cared about the older videos, they're like the OG fans. And so, gotta give respect to where that's due. Anyways, it's been a while since I've had a long-winded outro like this. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I love and appreciate you all. And I'll catch you next time in the next ranking video. Peace.